You ever have that feeling that something is just a little off? Well, let's talk about it. We're going to dive into one of the most mind-bending ideas of our time. The possibility that our entire reality, everything you see, feel, and know, is actually just an incredibly advanced computer simulation.
And look, this isn't just a plot from some sci-fi movie anymore. This is a serious idea being kicked around by people like Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson. They're hooked on this powerful statistical argument that, well, the odds are overwhelmingly against us being in the one single original universe.
But is this whole simulated reality thing actually a new idea? Not even close. It's really just a modern day twist on a philosophical question that we've been asking for centuries, long before we ever had things like computers.
I mean, think about it. You had Zhuangzi back in ancient China wondering if he was a man dreaming he was a butterfly, or maybe a butterfly dreaming he was a man. Then you've got Plato's prisoners in the cave who thought shadows on a wall were the entire world. Heck, even René Descartes worried about some evil demon creating a total illusion for him. They were all poking at the exact same question. They just didn't have the language of technology that we have today.
So, what brought this ancient question roaring back to life in the 21st century? Well, that takes us to 2003 and a philosopher named Nick Bostrom, who came up with a thought experiment that put this whole debate into a powerful new framework.
Okay, so his whole argument really hangs on this one key idea, the ancestor simulation. Now, I want you to imagine the most realistic open-world video game you can possibly think of, and then crank that realism up by like a trillion. He argued that a future civilization could create virtual realities of their own past, our present, that are so perfect the conscious beings inside would have absolutely no idea they weren't real. And this is where Bostrom's logic gets really interesting. He presents this trilemma, saying one of these three things has to be true. Option 1, humanity just goes extinct before we ever get that advanced. Option 2, we get super advanced, but we're just not interested in running these simulations. Or option 3, we are almost certainly living inside one right now. The argument goes that the first two seem kind of unlikely, which leaves us with that absolutely staggering third option. So why is that third option considered the most likely? Well, it's just a numbers game. If a future civilization can create even one of these perfect simulations, why would they stop there? They could run thousands, maybe millions of them. And if they do that, the number of simulated conscious minds would just explode, massively outnumbering the original people back in base reality. And this right here is the gut punch of the argument. If you are a conscious mind, and there are billions of simulated minds out there for every one real one, what are the odds that you just happen to be one of the originals? Statistically, it's way, way more likely that you're one of the simulations. And that is the unsettling heart of this whole thing. Okay, but before we all start trying to find the exit door to the Matrix, not everyone is buying this, not by a long shot. The hypothesis gets a lot of pushback from physicists and philosophers who think there are some major holes in the logic. And this right here is one of the biggest sticking points. See, the simulation idea kind of assumes that future computing power can become almost infinite. But our current understanding of physics basically says, hold on, not so fast. There seem to be very real fundamental limits to how much you can compute in a certain amount of space, which could make simulating an entire universe, atom by atom, physically impossible. And it's not just about the processing power, right? Critics bring up a ton of other great questions, like what's the motive? Why would they even bother simulating us? And if we're in a simulation, couldn't our simulators also be in a simulation? You get this infinite turtles all the way down problem. Plus, our universe seems way too complex and messy. And maybe the biggest critique of all for science is, if you can't prove it false, is it a real hypothesis or is it just a fun philosophical game? As physicist Marcelo Gleiser puts it pretty bluntly, why would a super advanced civilization that probably already knows all of this stuff spend a mind-boggling amount of resources on this? From their point of view, what would even be the point? But despite all these really solid critiques, the idea is just, it's too fascinating to just throw away. So some scientists are actually looking for ways to test it. They're searching for little clues that our reality might have, well, seams. Which of course leads to the ultimate question. Could we actually find a bug in the code? A glitch in the matrix that proves what's really going on? One of the wildest ideas is to look for signs that our universe is pixelated. You know how if you get super close to a TV screen, you can see the individual pixels? The theory is that if our reality is running on some kind of computer, then space-time itself might be made of tiny discrete units. And some physicists think we might just be able to spot this underlying grid by studying how the most powerful particles in the universe, these ultra-high energy cosmic rays, behave. So, as you can see, the debate is far from over. On one side, you have big thinkers like Musk and Tyson who find the whole probability argument really convincing, and on the other, you have physicists like Sabine Hassenfelder and George Ellis who basically call it untestable pseudoscience or just flat out impossible. But there's one last kind of terrifying twist to all this. Some philosophers warn that actively looking for proof might be the absolute worst thing we could do. Just think about it for a second. If we're an experiment in a lab, what usually happens when the lab rats figure out they're in an experiment? The scientists might just end it. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, really. Let's say we prove it tomorrow. This is all a program. Does that actually make it any less real to you? The pain you feel is real, the joy is real, the love you have for people is real. So if this is our reality, does it really matter what it's running on?